Good morning, Sales Academy followers, listeners, YouTubers, tweeters, Twitterers, LinkedIners, podcast listeners, YouTube watchers, everything in between us. You know who you are. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to today's musing, which was a conversation we had just before Christmas. It was a conversation in a group event, and this conversation's come up. This topic, if you like, has come up many, many times before. And there are different analogies that I use and utilize to help things make sense. And the reason for that is because stories help things make sense for people. Have you noticed that? We talk about this a lot. Stories, they don't just sell, they help complicated things make sense. So we can break very detailed things down into stories and analogies that people can relate to. And therefore, once it's more relatable, it becomes easier to absorb. So like bite-sized chunks, but it goes in because people, they have those little aha moments, those light bulbs, right? So today's topic for the podcast, first one for 2023, by the way, is this a love story or a one-night stand? Is this a love story or a one-night stand? Now, for some of you, you might have seen the topic and the title and gone, oh, what's that? And it's intrigued you. And if it has, brilliant, that's lovely. But there's a real depth to this. And yes, it might sound just a cheesy or even lewd or crude sort of line, but I want to go deeper. And the reason for that is because I spend a lot of time cutting through the bullshit, and I spend a lot of time teaching and coaching and supporting people and holding them accountable to cut through some of the bullshit that's going on in their lives and their businesses and everything else. And a lot of that is listening, and a lot of that is asking questions, and a lot of that is really cutting to the nub of the issue, really getting to the cause, not the symptoms, right? And I think that's really the art of coaching, is listening, questioning, supporting, not going into pact with, not sympathizing, but empathizing and understanding, and then questioning and challenging people to move past what's holding them back, right? So what I see a lot is conversations with either buyers or prospects or whatever, and people are saying, well, what I want to become as a salesperson or as a business owner or as somebody who's a specialist in their field, what I want to become for my customers and my prospects, I want to be that trusted advisor. I want to be the one that they turn to when anything to do with this, right? But also somebody they can bounce ideas off because they trust me and the input that I have in their business and their identity, whatever it might be. Blah, blah, blah. I want to be that trusted advisor, which sounds great, but a lot of things in business can be quite transactional. Now, it's not all about romance. It's not all about beautiful things. Sometimes they're very transactional. Like Amazon's a classic example of this. I don't have a love affair with Amazon. I have a transactional affair with Amazon. I literally go onto Amazon, I buy something because I can get it delivered the very next day or the day after that. And it's something that I've either need replacing or I've been thinking about something. Oh, yeah, I'll get that and I'll grab that. So recently I bought some pens. They come through Amazon. There's no love affair. It's a transactional thing. So first thing to say about, is it a love story or a one-night stand, is either's okay. As long as we're consciously aware and we're consciously choosing it, and of course there's consent, right? But as long as we're consciously choosing it, this is what's important. It's like if people are going into these relationships in business and they're wanting a love story, but actually the only real opportunity within that was ever going to be a transactional one, we're kind of fooling ourselves. And it's then easy to get frustrated with the customer because they're just treating us like a one-night stand, but actually we've allowed them to, we've shown them that that's okay, and actually we've taken their money and we've done the business. So actually we've encouraged it. We've been complicit with it at worst and encouraged it at best, right? Does that make sense? So we need to get really clear. I believe we need to get really clear on what do we mean by a one-night stand and a love affair, all right? So this came up in this conversation. So I'll give you the kind of analogy without breaking any confidence, but the story, we were talking about how an individual who is exceptional at what they do, they've evolved and evolved and evolved over the years of doing what they do. And let's just say years ago, they did a very bog standard, but really important part of business, but it was very transactional, very cold, very needed. And it was like quantity, volume, straight through. There was no real perception of thought or consideration into the job that was done. There was lots of depth of thought. There was design, there was creativity, there was all these kind of things that went into it, but it's what it was. So as this person and this business has evolved in their industry for the last 30 years, what they've developed is a real knowledge and skill set and understanding of listening to what's not being said, as well as what is listening to what's being said, which is very similar to us as coaches. But they're digging down and helping somebody really discover how they want to go out to the world, online, offline, print, everything else. They really want to help them discover their identity and then how they communicate that so that it makes sense to people. New people that have been with them for a while, internal customers, internal employees, everything. Every single aspect of communication they consider. And there's real strategy in that. There's implementation in that. There's also consideration and storytelling in that. There's cleverness and subtleties in that. There's colors and psychology in that. There's every single thing that you could possibly consider and comprehend for relate is built into this. And this was what you get when you invest with this guy, right? So that's a love story. That's a two-way love story. Because if he's coming to the table with all of that, but someone's coming going, yeah, can you just do me this? They're wanting a one-night stand. He's wanting a love story. And if you're working in those environments and those relationships on a regular basis, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that after a while, it will kind of cheese you off. Because you're putting all this love out there on the table and all you're getting is like a couple of quid for the taxi fare home, you know? So defining that and understanding that is step one. Is like, what is the difference for me in terms of customers? Do I even want one night stands, or do I want love affairs with every single customer? Because you got to look at this from a reality point of view. Is it realistic that every single relationship with every customer you have is going to be that really deep entrenched one? Or are some of those relationships, based on the product or service that you have to offer, are some of those relationships going to be shorter, faster, more transactional? And actually they might be very regular, but they might be, let's just call them distant. Right? But then you have others where you have a real relationship. Now, some of this comes down to the individual's behaviors, the psychology of their makeup, their profile. And some of this is just the way that they choose to do business, right? But also it's down to your profile and your makeup and the way that you choose to do business. So anyway, let's get to the point. Do you ever ask the question? Do you ever ask the question in your conversations with these potential new customers or prospects? Do you ever ask the question, like, can I just ask, is what we're talking about here in terms of a working relationship and a solution? I'm curious, are you looking for a love story or a one night stand? And I tabled this as a suggestion. I tabled this as a kind of, have you ever asked this question? You know, and it was interesting because majority of people went, oh no, I could never do that. And they're like, why? Oh no, you could get away with that, but I never could. And I'm like, but why? So yeah, I might be a little bit maverick, a little bit cheeky, a little bit whatever you want to call it. I don't care. But what I'm doing is just tabling and challenging the elephant in the room. Because if I'm sitting there going internally, oh, I'm really wanting this, but externally I'm having to behave in this way because this person wants something different, I'm quite within my rights to stipulate what I want and ask for what I want, the same as the other person at the other side of the table is as well. And let's get on the right side of the table first, you know, and let's have these conversations. Now you can word it differently. You can have many different analogies and stories to ask this same question, but fundamentally, the principle is the point of asking this question. What kind of working relationship are you looking for? A transactional one or a more in-depth supported one? Now that feels colder to me than saying, can I just check? Is this a love story or a one night stand? Because I'm all right either way. I just need to know what we're looking with, you know, what we're working with. So it could be a Travelodge or a Hilton, you know, other hotels are available, but you know what you get when you stay at a Travelodge, right? You don't get a gym. You don't get all these fancy things. You get a bed and a shower and a place to stay because that's all you need. With a Hilton or a De Vere or whatever, you get a leisure club, you get a lovely bar, you get a lovely restaurant. Sometimes you get a choice of restaurants. You know, you get completely different bedroom experiences and stuff. So bedroom experiences, that sounds dodgy. You get completely different bedrooms, showers, all that sort of stuff. And it's a nicer stay. It's designed to be a more luxury stay. So you could maybe ask the question that way, you know, when you're considering solutions or considering buying into products and services, I'm curious to understand in terms of budget or however you approach this, are you looking for a Travelodge type solution, or are you looking for a Devere type solution? Are you looking for a one night stand or a love story? You know, either way, what you're trying to understand and get the person to understand and get really honest with is, what do they want? Because if they are honest with you, you can genuinely offer that support or not. But what you're not doing, either of you, is effectively lying to each other, withholding truth, saying one thing but doing another, right? Because perceived indifference is where customers leave, where staff members leave. If there's a difference, if they signed up to this but they're getting that, that's when there's a perceived indifference, and that starts to create the kind of the Mariana Trench, you know, that tiny little crack that then just goes to this massive gaping trench. So that's separation, that's perceived indifference, that's where we drift. So how about if we just take right at the front, we just have these upfront, bold conversations to be able to understand, for both of us to be able to understand where we stand. That's the point. Is this a love story or a one night stand? Because I'm sure each and every one of you would prefer to know exactly where you stand with each of your clients and prospects going forward. Anyway, if you want help with this, if you want to understand this deeper, you want to explore this with yourself or your team, this is what we do. We love this, you know, whether you're in sales or you're in business. You know, if you're in business, you're in sales, you know what we always say. But it's sales training and business coaching. That's what we do. And we work with individuals, we work with teams, and we work with large businesses. But a lot of these simple principles are really, really powerful ones as well. And understanding the kind of psychology behind them is far better than just thinking it's a trick or a gimmick, or maybe we should try this. Tips and tricks and gimmicks don't work. In-depth, time invested relationships work. So as you can tell, I'm looking for love stories, not one night stands. Catch you soon. I'm going to enjoy my coffee. Have a great start to the year. Peace out, guys.